Chapter 1, So It Begins, with a Truck. The Runesmith. It was getting late, the street lights flickered around while someone coughed in the distance. The wind howled while people were trying to get to their homes. Little drops of water started appearing on the glass windows, followed by gentle tapping. A certain man was sitting in a lit room, holding what looked to be a soldering iron. His hair was slightly unkempt and you could see a reflection of some kind of schematic coming of the glasses he was wearing. He was glancing between this schematic and the circuit board that was on the table. "I need to replace these capacitors, not sure which one is the faulty one, I'll just replace all of them." The man gave out a sigh while slowly getting his tools ready. He was glancing onto the circuit board with the help of a microscope, the tiny metallic parts hard to spot with the naked eye. "That bastard made me work overtime again." This man was in his mid-20s, he was at a small computer repair shop. He was yet again forced to stay late into the day, being that the new kid in this place apparently put a bullseye on your back. The older workers always found a way to push their overdue workload on him, always giving him the excuse that he needed more experience and he should work harder. "Damn fuckers only do this shit because I can't refuse." He was still new, he was still in his trial period, so he was expendable. He made the decision of trying to get along with his coworkers and play the nice guy. This was the result, he was stuck working and would probably be home at 8. "Well, not like I have any plans anyway. At least they don't force me to clean all those dirty laptops, what do those people do with them to get them so dirty anyway?" The sound of sizzling filled the area while the man continued with his work. The capacitors were replaced and everything was checked again, the circuit board he was fixing was in working order once more. "Finally, just need to clean this shit and I'm done." He wasn't alone here though, the whole repair shop was the building that his boss was actually living in. The bottom level was just the shop while the upper was the living quarters. He peeked through the door leading upstairs and shouted out, "I'm done, I'm going home, boss." He heard some kind of grunt that was muffled by the sounds of a TV. He just shrugged and grabbed his coat to go, luckily he took his umbrella today. The moment he walked outside he was hit with a sudden gust of wind that almost snapped it in half though. "God damn, if I left normally, I wouldn't be stuck in this damn storm." He kicked a pebble while his umbrella shook from the pouring rain and strong winds. He felt dejected with his whole situation but not like he could do anything about it. He was living alone and needed it to pay rent, he barely had enough for an internet connection and food and was living from paycheck to paycheck. "Ugh, if I ever get out of this shithole I'm going to open my own store, working for others sucks." He arrived at a crosswalk. The howling wind was smashing into his face and the lack of earphones and music to listen to was making this whole ordeal even harder to last through. The only thing making him power through this was the warm bed waiting at home. While his mind was elsewhere the light at the crosswalk turned green and he took a step forward. Luck wasn't on his side yet again. When he was about halfway across the street a large truck appeared out of nowhere. He looked to the shining halogen lights that blinded him momentarily. The vehicle came right at him, his mind went blank and his life flashed through his eyes. He remembered his youth, his family, and his lack of friends. It was a life of mediocrity, a life of following the status quo. But then, suddenly he snapped out of it. His body jolted forward as he jumped for his dear life. He felt air pressure from his back accompanied by a large splash of water. He tumbled forward onto the sidewalk, the large truck just continuing on as if nothing happened. He didn't even have time to glance at the plates. He was drenched in the rainwater, his hands scraped from the pavement. "Fucking psycho." He cursed while standing up, his palms were bloody and he was all wet, but luckily he was alive. His umbrella was in the middle of that street, flattened by the truck that almost killed him. His heart was pounding and he needed some time to calm down, but the pouring rain was making things hard. "I need to get home." He turned around while gritting his teeth, the fear replaced by anger as he headed home. He was drenched, his body was hurting, and he still wasn't back home. There was a possibility that he could catch a cold. The only thing on his mind now was to take a warm shower. Sometimes I wish I could afford a bathtub. It always comes down to money. He moved forward. His apartment wasn't far away from where he worked. This was the only saving grace of his job. He could reach it on foot within 30 minutes, which saved him some money. Suddenly he felt a shiver run down his spine. It wasn't the cold rain but more of a premonition. He could hear an engine revving not too far away from where he was. He slowly turned around, his eyes bulging slightly as he saw the exact same truck that almost turned him to meat paste. What? The truck was progressively getting louder, its front lights turned off. By instinct he started backing away. The halogens turned on and shone at the street that he was in. There were buildings on both sides and no space to duck to the side. When the truck that had it in for him took off, so did he, running for his life like never before. Holy shit! Who is this fucker? He bolted forward. There was no one beside him in the streets, no other cars in sight besides the honking truck behind him. The street was eerily empty, only one scrawny man running away from a big truck that went faster and faster. I need to call the police. Where is everyone? He continued running, his gaze focused on the end of the street, a small alleyway there. He didn't look back, he didn't falter as he just kept running, mustering everything that his gamer body could muster. With a last-ditch effort he dived forward. A gust of wind felt behind him as the truck barreled past him while he jumped into the narrow passage. He landed on his face, his hands getting scraped even more and blood running out of his nose. He quickly rolled up, trying to see if he was safe, the truck vanishing seemingly into thin air after clipping part of the building that connected to this alleyway. Fuck, it shouldn't be able to get me here. But what if the driver chases after me instead? He was sweating bullets, tired, and afraid. This wasn't over, he didn't think so. He turned around and quickly escaped into the alleyway, nothing in it besides trash and rats. He jogged forward, exhausted from the previous sprint. The other side. There is a police station on the other side. He saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Not far from here there was a small police unit. He only needed to get there and report this fucker and everything. But as he was treading forward, the lights in the vicinity started to flicker continuously. Abruptly all of the light bulbs that lighted the way forward shattered into pieces and everything went dark, and then he heard it again, the revving of the engine. And no. Stay away. In front he could see the damn truck. It was barely able to fit into this narrow passage, scraping the walls as it slowly drove forward. He quickly turned away. To his surprise he heard the same engine noise. Another truck blocking his path was there too. The area filled with the screeching noise of scraping metal as the two trucks drove at him, each second increasing in speed. Ha ha ha. He started laughing, his face showing a shaky smile as he lost it. He looked to the sides, walls blocking his path of escape. Screw you. He moved to the wall, his fingers digging into the hard concrete wall as he tried climbing up. His fingernails broke, blood gushing out as he scratched trying to climb up, but to no avail, as the rainwater made it far too slippery. The last things that he saw were the bright truck lights coming from the sides. He tried looking into the driver's seat. His eyes bulging, his jaw clenched as he tried to see the person responsible. To his surprise, he didn't see anything, not even a silhouette of a driver, the truck seat totally empty. Splat. That was the last thing that he saw. His short life of a computer repairman ended right there. He felt resentment in his eyes. There were things that he wanted to achieve. Simple things, like a business of his own where he could dictate the rules and not be a slave to his wage for the rest of his life. But he was also looking at the bright side. He was now free from the worldly problems. He floated in the void, his mind racing as it couldn't comprehend where it was. This state of mind didn't last for long as he felt being drawn somewhere. It was as if something or someone was calling him there. R, D, M, and D. He heard a voice. It was a gentle-sounding voice that belonged to a woman. Mas, R. Land. PL.AS, U, Mu, Whack, P. He felt strange, like his whole being was getting pulled somewhere. He continuously heard the voice. It was calling out to him, but he didn't recall the name that the woman was saying. Roland? The voice that seemed distant started getting closer, and he started feeling nauseous and tired. The only saving grace this time around, he felt something. He tried moving, but his body felt sluggish. He could barely wiggle his finger. He moved. Master Roland moved. Oh, thank the gods. He felt sick, like he was having a really bad case of the flu. His head was spinning and his body felt heavy. Did I survive those trucks? Is someone called Roland with me in here? Is this the hospital? He couldn't see well, his eyes felt just as heavy as his body. He forced them open. They took a while to focus. The blurry world started taking shape and he saw an unfamiliar-looking wooden ceiling. That looks shabby. Am I in some kind of shed or something? He finally saw the woman that was previously shouting. She looked like an older lady. Her body was somewhat wrinkled up. The thing that caught his eye the most was what she was wearing. Is that a maid uniform? She was wearing the whole shebang. A black dress, a white apron, and a cap of some sort that was holding her hair. He felt something cool be placed on his forehead, which was a damp cloth that this lady placed. From the looks of it, he was still alive but ended up in someone's house instead of a hospital. The strange thing was that the lady looked kind of big. Was she over 2 meters tall or something? The bed he was in also seemed to be uncharacteristically large compared to his body. The problem wasn't with the furniture or the old woman though. As he leaned down, he noticed that his body looked a lot different than before. For one, he was a lot shorter. He felt really weak and couldn't move. The woman that looked like a Victorian maid tended to his sick body. Not long after, some kind of old man walked into the room. He looked to be some kind of physician, but for some reason he didn't even give him an examination. He just stared at him while holding onto a monocle. Wait. Why is that monocle glowing? The man harumphed while turning to the maid that was standing in the corner, visible concern on her face. Why did you call me here? He is fine, his status is already recovering. Don't call me for trivial things. I need to tend to the other young masters. The old man shouted at the maid as if she did something wrong. The old woman just bowed and took the verbal abuse, but the moment he left, her face looked a lot brighter. Thank the gods, young master, you had me worried sick. She smiled while replacing the damp, wet cloth for a new one. She didn't stay there for long though, saying that he should sleep for now and that she would be back in a couple of hours to check on him. After the coast was clear, Roland managed to raise his upper body. He looked at his hands. They were soft and small. His body looked thick and slightly malnourished, but that wasn't the main problem here. What is this? Did I become a kid? Everything in this room wasn't big, he just was small. He had turned into a child for some reason. Wait. Am I really this Roland? What is this? What's going on? Who is this? Where is this? My status is recovering. While he was desperately clamoring for answers in his head, something happened. A screen popped up in front of his face. His eyes bulged wide as he started reading what was written there. This wasn't all. The moment the window popped up, he felt information rushing into his brain. It was as if thousands of needles poking his head. The information that he was receiving concerned the boy named Roland Arden that he was occupying the body of. So that's how it is. Name, Roland Arden. Strength 4. Agility 5. Dexterity 15. Vitality 4. Endurance 4. Intelligence 35. Willpower 18. Charisma 6. Luck 5. Hey there, it's me, the author. I've decided to give another story a try, this one being a lit RPG. I'm happy if the readers could give me some input if they see any flaws in the story or in the game mechanics. This has been on my mind, but the thought of doing math for the game elements was keeping me away. Hope I can come up with something fun for the future readers. Chapter 2, Stats, Skill and even more stats. The Runesmith. Roland kept looking at the status window. He was someone versed in computers, so he knew what those meant. Am I stuck in some kind of game world? Did someone put me into virtual reality? He pinched himself to see if he was feeling any pain, and to no surprise he did. Did I really die? Is this the afterlife? He was shocked. Not too long ago he was tinkering in the computer repair shop, and now he woke up in a young boy's body. He even knew who this child was as he regained all of his memories and what the child knew about this world. The place he was in was called the Kingdom of Caldris, and he was the fourth son from the House of Arden. His new father was a baron and he was the youngest son, besides that he even had two sisters, one being younger than him. This kid. His family doesn't really think much of him, does it? He looked at the shabby room he was in. He knew from his memories that he wasn't really in contention for the noble title of this house. This honor belonged to the firstborn. Maybe the second-born still had a shot at it if he was especially talented. But he was only the fourth in line. Unless all of his brothers died, he had no chance. He wasn't sure what this boy's fate would be in the eyes of his family. He was too young to know how the political structure in this world worked. He only knew that he was the son of a noble, so it was probably still better than being a commoner. I should be safe here for the time. Not sure what the age of adulthood in this world is, but the bigger question is. He looked to the hovering window in front of his face. It looked like some kind of status screen of an RPG character. It had things like strength and endurance, just like in games that he used to play. Most of his stats were low, but some of them stood out. My intelligence is quite high, so is my willpower and dexterity. Aren't the first two mage stats? He needed more information first. He needed to figure this status screen out. This was something that the people leaving in this world saw as natural. The boy's memories reflected that as he could recall him using it. Okay, I need to think status and it should show up. He strained his thoughts, the game-like screen appearing in front of him again. He could see all of his main stats. If he guided his gaze to the desired option, he could even get some flavor text to give him an explanation. Name, explanation. Strength indicates the physical power of an individual, increases attack damage and stamina slightly. Agility indicates how agile and nimble a person is, increases speed, quickness, and stamina slightly. Dexterity indicates skill in performing tasks, especially with the hands, increases attack damage with finesse weapons and attack speed. Vitality increases health points, defense, physical resistances, and the lifespan of an individual. Endurance increases an individual's stamina, stamina regeneration, and health points slightly. Intelligence increases an individual's mana points, magic attack, and learning speed. Willpower increases an individual's resistance to elemental attacks, status effects, and mana points slightly. Charisma indicates an individual's charm. A measure of personality, persuasiveness, leadership. Luck increases the chance or critical attacks and other various skills related to chance. He started reading the short explanations for the attributes and looked at his own to see what he was good and bad at. Most of his stats were quite low, but some were uncharacteristically high compared to the others. For one, his intelligence stat was really high at a whopping 35. Followed by willpower at 18 and then dexterity at 15. Intelligence increases my mana and magic attack. Am I a mage or something? I'm resistant to status effect and good with my hands. Besides those three, everything else was below 10. He had no idea how the stats of an average person's in this world looked like. He tried recalling something from the memories that he got from this child, but there was nothing concerning this. The boy left a boring life without anyone really telling him anything. This was due to how low his social standing was in this family. He was the lowly fourth son, and he wasn't even the child of the main wife but came from a mistress that wasn't even allowed to live together with him at this estate. He tried recalling how the boy's mother looked, a face or even the shape, but he couldn't. Don't think he ever saw his mother. He tried thinking about what kind of world he was in now. There was a window in his room, but he was still feeling sickly. By the looks of the doctor and the maid, he was somewhere where the technological advancement wasn't that great. Great. How am I supposed to live without the internet now? He became dejected. All those shows and movies that he was eagerly waiting to devour in his free time were all gone now. What was he even supposed to do here? Go to school like a normal kid and then become some kind of court official? Is that even an option? My status is fairly low. Won't they just toss me out, or tell me to go join the army or something? He wasn't sure how things worked. From his internet knowledge he knew that noble sons sometimes became servants of higher nobles. Some were even forced to join the clergy to become a monk. Ugh, I don't want to shave my head. Or be forced to take some vows. He moved his attention back to his status. Did it always look like this? He tried recalling the memories of the boy that had previously looked at his own attributes. Ranobes. I'm sure those 3 stats were lower. Though his intelligence was above 10 from the start. He had somehow influenced these stats, but what was the reason? He decided to investigate and looked at his status screen again. What is that? There is a skill menu. He willed the skill menu to open. With some mental gymnastics he managed to bring out the window. This one showed him all the skills and traits that he had. Name, type, description. Debugger L5 passive skill allows the user to find and resolve defects. Bonus to intelligence +5. Logical thinker trait. A person with this trait thinks calmly, can analyze the problem and come to a rational conclusion. Receives a bonus to intelligence +5 and willpower +5. Circuitry L6 passive skill bonus to repair and creation of circuits or circuit equivalents. Bonus to dexterity +6 and +6 intelligence. Fast learning trait. People with this trait absorb knowledge at an increased rate, bonus to intelligence +5. Knowledge retention trait. A person with this trait is able to retain more information and at a faster rate, bonus to intelligence +3 and willpower +5. Sleep resistance L4 passive skill. You require less sleep and feel less tired. Tinkerer L5 passive skill. Increased proficiency in the creation and repair of various components, bonus to dexterity 5. Identify L1 passive skill. Used for identifying and analyzing the world. Mana sense L1 passive skill. Allows you to sense mana. Roland's eyes went wide. He didn't expect to find so many various skills in there. He knew that most of those weren't in here before. This also explained why he had an increase in stats. Most of those passive skills and traits increase my intelligence, willpower, and dexterity. The traits and skills that were there before he got here were fast learning, knowledge retention, identify and mana sense. He could also recall that this kid read a lot of books in his pastime. Though that probably had to do with the fact that there was nothing else for him to do besides that. Those nights I spend playing games must count for that sleep resistance passive. Okay, so why am I here? Did I overwrite this brat's brain, or did he die and then my soul jumped in, or something? He tried recalling why the boy was sick. The moment he did, he got a slight headache. He recalled that the boy was trying to do something. He managed to see some kind of glowing mist in the air and he tried to somehow absorb it into his body. Then something went wrong and he got sick. Didn't that doctor say something about my status already recovering? He looked at his status screen again. The moment he thought about it, the window expanded and showed him a new part. Roland Arden. HP 40-50 seconds. MP 492/492. SP 35-67. Status effects. Sickness, recovering. Sickness? Why are there question marks there? Do you need some kind of knowledge to see what it actually is? He squinted and concentrated on the question marks, but nothing changed. He did have some kind of identification skill, but maybe it wasn't high enough being only at L1. Well, he got sick after that glowing mist entered his body. Does it have something to do with that mana sense skill? I sure have a huge amount of MP compared to everything else. This was a really odd situation to be in. He thought of what happened that night. 2 murder trucks turned him into a bloody pancake, and now he ended up in someplace with a game system. From the kid's memories, he was sure that he wasn't the only one with this system. Everyone had it with them since birth. The rest was unclear, as no one really explained much to this child. This was probably also why he suffered some kind of backlash from absorbing that glowing mist. While he was at it, he looked at his stats and then compared the bonuses from the passive skills that he was receiving. Most of his intelligence came from his passives and traits. If he removed them all, then he would end up with 11. Still over 10, though. Is that even a lot for a 5-year-old? Still, with those 2 traits that he had, it would put his int at 19. Maybe his weak body couldn't handle the excess mana? He started doing some mathematics in his brain, trying to count how much his stats affected his HP and MP. It didn't take him too long to figure out that he gained 10 MP for every 1 intelligence, and 4 MP for every point in willpower. The surprising thing came afterwards, as after he was done with his calculations. You have learned the basic mathematics skill. What? The sounds belonged to a woman, and she sounded quite gentle. He looked around to see if someone came into this room, but there was no one to be seen. So, I've gained a new skill. He checked the description, but it didn't say much besides it being an indicator that he knew mathematics. It didn't even increase his intelligence stat at all. Guess you don't get stat bonuses for every skill? He had no reference point. The boy's memories didn't answer many questions about these skills. The identify skill was something that apparently showed up after time passes. Maybe it was something everyone had? He really needed more information about his situation, but he was only a 5-year-old child that wasn't taken seriously around here. Maybe that maid will answer some questions? He thought back to the old lady that showed concern when tending to him. Her name was Martha, and from the looks of things, she was the only person that tended to the young boy's needs. He had a vivid image in his mind of the woman bringing him food, helping him put on clothes, or cleaning around the room that he spent the most time in. He remembered something. There was a certain book that the youth was reading before succumbing to the sickness. In the corner, there was a large desk with a chair. Some old cushions were placed there by the maid so that the boy didn't feel uncomfortable while reading. There was a pile of books there, and one, in particular, was the one he was interested in. Think I feel better now, should be able to move. He wasn't sure if it was due to his willpower stat that supposedly helped with status effects, but he was feeling better with each passing moment. He wiggled down his bed and moved over to the desk which had the book in question. The Basics of Magic. So, he started learning this, and something went wrong. That's harsh. He thought back to the poor child. He was more or less abandoned by his family. The doctor was too late to save him. He might have even been too lazy to bother by how he acted when he saw him recovering. He left the book on the desk and moved to the sole window that was right next to it. He peeked outside and noticed that there were some people there. They looked to be working the field. Some kind of plow was attached to a farm animal. Is that an ox? Why is it so big, and why does it have 3 horns? He was clearly not on Earth anymore. The farmer there was using the large animal to help him plow the field. He could see other people walking around, even some in not so well kept armor. While he was preoccupied with sneaking glances outside the window, the door opened up. Martha returned to check up on the boy. Master Roland. You shouldn't be out of bed, here I brought you some porridge. The man in the child's body looked at the smiling woman. He wanted to speak up but decided on just nodding and going back to bed. This will take some time getting used to. Well, had to already go back to change some stats. Counting stats is proving to be a bit tedious, Omega. Chapter 3, Geography and Family. The Runesmith. Sadly, I don't have much time to edit these. If someone spots any grammar or spelling errors I would very much appreciate it. Have fun with the next chapter. Roland looked up at the ceiling. It was the same shabby ceiling that was there yesterday. He gave out a sigh and looked around, his mood dropping even further. It wasn't a dream after all. Just to be sure he thought about bringing up the status window. It appeared in a flash. That sickness status isn't there anymore. I guess I've made a full recovery. The man in the child's body strained his memory trying to recall what this kid normally did the whole day. Did he need to interact with his family? Did he have to act like a brat? Would they find out that someone else was inhabiting this body if he acted strangely? Were some questions that he was asking himself. He also thought back to yesterday and to the woman named Martha. He tried probing her about the sickness. The woman didn't know anything about it and the doctor didn't look into it either. Maybe I shouldn't have told her about that glowing mist. He muttered to himself. He felt that him telling the old maid what happened was not something that he would normally do. He was mostly mistrustful of others and not really sharing his feelings with just anyone. Are this kid's memories affecting me or something? He knew the child's original owner was very fond of this woman. He remembered that she was the only person that was kind towards him. No one else from his so-called family bothered with him and the other servants were also very cold. Don't think she will do anything drastic. He went back to thinking about his next step. He needed to find some way to fit into this strange game-like world and maybe find a way back to his old one. The thought of murder trucks chasing him was still bothering him. While getting up from his bed he heard a knock on the door. His maid Martha walked in with some bread, water, and what looked to be meat. Young master, you should still rest. She placed the food on a nearby table and moved towards the child, concern on her face. I'm fine. The sickness status isn't even there anymore. He replied while not wanting to go back into that bed. He spent an entire day there just looking up at the ceiling and his status screen. He was bored out of his mind and there were no such things like the internet in this world. What he needed is more information. He knew that this place had a library and as the son of the Baron he was allowed to go through it. From the child's memories, he knew that this was mostly what this kid did. Probably this was why his intelligence stat was so high. Is that so? Young master, your father wants to see you later in the day. Keep that in mind. Let me help you get dressed first. That was a quick change in attitude. The mention of no status effects was enough to deem a person cured apparently. He wants to see me. What was this about? He racked his brain and couldn't recall any recent memories where his father paid any attention to him. Could he be worried about Roland's health? But why now? Did he mention why? Martha placed her hand on his head and patted his hair. She was also helping him put on some clothes. It looked like some kind of tunic and pants combo, quite plain looking. With tilde new Thailand body s. He probably just wants to see his youngest son. Be happy young master, you have a chance to meet your father. The maid sounded really happy that the Baron wanted to see him. It made it seem like it was some kind of big honor that he was even allowed to see that man. Is there some kind of etiquette for things like this? There is nothing in this kid's memories about these things. Finally master decided you see you, this is your big chance young master. The maid named Martha was quite happy, in her eyes this was a joyous occasion. Roland, on the other hand, was quite skittish. He feared that he might act out of line and get himself in some kind of trouble with his so-called father. He won't order some kind of lashing if I act out of line, will he? The only thing about nobles that he knew was from history. They were rumored to be snotty and prone to violence and took their reputation very seriously. While Roland's imagination was pushing him into a certain direction, he finished eating and getting dressed. The food was quite plain, just some white bread, water, and a large sausage which tasted funny. "Martha, I want to go to the library." The books in his room weren't what he was looking for. He wanted to see where he was. He needed some history books or ones about geography. A map of where he was would be nice too. He wanted to know where he ended up. Besides knowing the name, he had no idea what this place was. The library? Think that's okay, but be sure not to spend too long. You have to remember the Lord's order. By the looks of it, this meeting couldn't be avoided. His maid would probably drag him there even if he refused. He finally left his room and could stretch his legs. He was on the top floor in a side wing of the Arden family mansion. He was someone that had spent his life living in small apartments and lofts, so this place felt huge. Think a baron is on the bottom of the noble ladder? I guess a noble is still a noble. He stepped outside. The door that led out of his room creaked as if he was in a haunted house. Thanks to the original Roland's memories, he knew exactly where the library was located. The boy was quite smart when it came to studying, but he felt like he had holes in his knowledge. The process that passed the memories of the original Roland wasn't perfect. He could see some servants here and there, but no one really paid any attention to him. He thought that as a young noble he would be greeted or receive a bow. This didn't happen. The people looked in his direction but went on their way as if he wasn't there. I guess that's how an illegitimate son would be treated. He remembered that he was a bastard, someone that was born from a commoner that the Baron had his way with. He still had no idea what his mother was up to, but he was sure that she wasn't in this mansion. They finally arrived at the library. The doors were large and old and screech when he opened them up as well. Inside he saw shelves with various books. The place looked very old and was dusty. The servants didn't take care of it as the Baron focused more on practical things like swordsmanship. Ah yes, the only bookworm of the family. Martha left. This was a place that the young Roland visited frequently. Most of the time he just took some books that were interesting, like fables and tales about legendary heroes. No one bothered him here and he didn't need to fear his older brothers that didn't seem to like him all too much. Okay, I need to find some kind of map. Where am I and how big is this country? He was short at about 105 centimeters, which was normal for a child his age. Due to this, he needed a chair if he wanted to reach the books that were placed on higher shelves. Why do they have this library if no one even uses it? He rummaged through everything and managed to find some history and geography books. There was even a map with the names of the countries. The country I'm in was called the Kingdom of Caldris. The map was a bit dusty and the ink was slightly faded, but it was readable. So I'm here. The map that he was able to procure wasn't a world map but just of the continent that he was on. This was enough to get a general idea. His country had 4 other countries around it, which wasn't good from a military standpoint. Hope those countries don't decide to invade us. He went through the books that he grabbed and soon found out the power of his fast learning and memory retention trait. He could remember most of what he had read on the previous page. His learning speed was astonishing. I could have used this back at the college days. Maybe I can become a scholar or a court official in this world? If they have anything like that. He was unsure of his future, but he would rather be a researcher than a knight. Damn, these history books are too vague. How old is this even? The books weren't helping that much without a reference point. He forgot to ask his maid about the era he was in. He didn't know what year it was either. The geography books were more helpful though. From them he found out that the kingdom that he was living in was fairly large. It was even larger than the largest country that he knew back on Earth, surface-wise. This is only a partial map. Is this the only continent? If not, then this planet could be a lot bigger than Earth. He continued with the reading and finally found the name of the world that he was now on, along with its size. The planet's name is Terra? Think I've heard that somewhere before. The size, this isn't the metric system anymore? Do I need to find a math book now? He had the world name, but the size was unknown to him. He shrugged as it didn't really matter, knowing that it was big was enough. While he was rummaging through the books he heard the large door opening up. Martha stepped through them, probably here to remind him about the appointment with his father. "Young master, it's time." The new Roland felt nervous for some reason. He had a hard time remembering the Baron's face. The man didn't really visit him that often. The last time he saw him was on the boy's 4th birthday. On the 5th one, he didn't even receive a present from him, just a quiet party with his maid that brought him some cake. This is going to be awkward. Do I need to call that guy father? Will he hit me if I annoy him? He was sure that he was the lowest-ranked person from the whole family, and he remembered that his older brothers didn't take him seriously either. He had to do it though, so he followed after his maid that guided him to the dining room. "Are we going to eat dinner together or something?" He racked his brain. He couldn't remember the last time Roland was invited to dine with his family. He mostly spent his days alone in his room reading books and dreaming about fun and adventure like any young boy his age. His maid stopped before the door to the dining room. She smiled at him but knew that she wasn't allowed to go any further. "I will see you later, young master." He nodded and entered the room. Inside he saw a large table. Servants were bringing in food and drinks alike. Some of his brothers were already here, like the 3rd son Robert. The youth was 8 years old, and the moment their eyes met he scoffed as if Roland wasn't supposed to be here. Robert, just as him, was someone that came from a commoner, but his mother was a mistress that was still living in this house. Thanks to this he still had a measure of respect. Roland just stood there for now as he wasn't sure if he was allowed to take a seat before the Baron arrived. Edwin the 2nd son and Rainer the firstborn son arrived soon afterward. Besides them, there was his older sister Sophia and Diana that was the younger one. That Baron sure likes to party. 6 kids already. Might be more on the way. Edwin and Rainer were sons from the main wife along with Sophia the first daughter. Diana along with Robert came from the second wife, aka the mistress. From Roland's reasoning, the first wife probably got older and the Baron switched to the younger version while making more kids along the way. I see, being a noble has its perks. Roland wasn't someone who was very experienced with women. He had a fling with 2 back in his college days, but after he started working he had a long dry spell. The Baron and his wives arrived soon afterward, Tabitha the first wife and Francine the second one and the mistress. The Baron looked to be a big man. He had a nice gentleman-like mustache and a large scar running down from his left eyebrow all the way to his lip. He exuded a certain aura of a warrior. The noble clothes that he was wearing couldn't hide all the muscles underneath all too well. "Damn, my dad is jacked." Everyone waited for the Baron to arrive. He sat at center stage, and then one by one, starting from the main wife, everyone sat down. Roland was sure to follow everyone's example and sit the furthest back right next to the 3rd son. He could see the snarky 8-year-old glaring at him the moment he did that. "What you staring at, you little shit?" was the thing he wanted to shout out, but he remained quiet. Would be best if he didn't have to talk with anyone in here. The Baron was quiet and everyone just waited for him to start eating. The food on the table didn't taste all that great. The cuisine on Earth was a lot better compared to this bland meat they were having. "Rainer, how is your sword training going?" the Baron asked. "My basic sword mastery is already at level 6, father." The Baron started asking his kids about skills and the progress in their training. Apparently they were training and unlocking skills. They even mentioned the warrior class and something about it being tier 1. He wasn't sure what this meant as he himself didn't have anything like a class. While he was digesting the new information and trying not to stand out, he heard his father call out to him. "Roland." He flinched and looked up. Everyone was looking at him for some reason. It was more a look of surprise, some of his family members almost having forgotten that they had a 5-year-old sibling. "The doctor said that you contacted the mana sickness, also you saw some glowing mist, is that right?" "Glowing mist? Did Martha rat me out?" Why yes, father." He tried imitating his older brothers but stuttered slightly. Thankfully the buff-looking man didn't seem to mind it that much. "Mana sickness. Do you perhaps have a mana-related skill?" His father looked at him, everyone else did the same as they waited for a reply. "Why yes, I have the mana sense skill." "What?" The oldest brother shouted out while looking at Roland, his eyes squinting. "What you staring at me like that for? I'm just answering the questions here." "Ho, mana sense. You're not lying to me, are you?" The Baron gave Roland an intense stare. The boy shrunk down as he felt as if he was getting rocks piled up on him. "And no, I have it." He spoke out in a meek voice while the Baron rubbed his chin. "Is that so, Adam?" He could see the other kids and even the wives looking at him. It was as if he was doing something out of line, but they were afraid to speak up while the Baron was talking. A man with gray hair stepped out. He was wearing a black tux. "If the boy has the mana sense skill we need to check, bring someone who can perform a test. If he passes, look into procuring a tutor and some books related to magic." Roland looked at the large man that was asking the butler-looking fellow for some test. Was he about to get a magic teacher? Was it going to be that easy? He expected to have to scrape by being unnoticed, but here he was getting some preferential treatment out of nowhere. Was mana sense some rare skill? He could tell that his siblings weren't happy with this. Their expressions were easy to read as they were kids that weren't able to hide their emotions. Roland, on the other hand, was all smiles, just nodding while his Baron of a father continued to talk. Maybe I'm some kind of genius? Am I a wizard now?" Chapter 4, Making Some Progress. The Runesmith. This was unexpected. It was as if he played the Uno reverse card and flipped his social status around. The next day a person came to check upon him. His father stood true to his word and brought someone over to test if he had talent in magic. It was apparently one of the more rare gifts in this world. Roland thought that they might try reading his status screen in some way. That would in turn reveal his circuit and debugging-related skills. Luckily, you had to have an evolved version of the identifying skill to be actually able to that. This cost a lot, so his father opted out for a lesser measuring item in the shape of an orb. It tested someone's aptitude in some way and gave out a faint blue glow which indicated that Roland did indeed have the mentioned mana sense skill. His life got turned upside down. He was suddenly accepted into the family inner circle together with the other kids. His living quarters were moved and even the servants were bowing at him now. The same couldn't be said for the other sons though. They all saw him as an eyesore. They were quite competitive and prideful. Still, he was the only one from the family with this so-called talent. This meant more work though. He received many new books on how to train his skills. He didn't get a tutor for one reason or the other, but he suspected that even with this, he was still considered only slightly more useful. He was aware that he could lose his newfound standing quite fast if he slacked off. "Man, this world is harsh. The only thing I'm doing is studying and then training. This is worse than staying overtime for work. This is slave labor." His day consisted mostly of reading books and training his mana skill to a higher level. He received bonuses to his intelligence and they told him that he needed to max it out before his ascension ritual. What was an ascension ritual, you might ask? It was something that happened when a child reached the age of 10. From what he knew, he would be given something called an ascension stone. After his 10th birthday, it would finally be usable and reward him with his first class. Apparently it was quite strange, the person using it would be brought to some strange location where this ritual took place. From what it said in the books, the rituals might differ depending on the individuals, but he would receive the first class automatically without being able to choose it himself. That's why it was important to train the skills that were required for Tier 1 class you wanted. Yes, classes came in tiers. The most basic Tier 1 classes that existed were Warrior, Archer, Mage, Thief, Blacksmith, and Acolyte. There were of course more, but these were the most common ones that most of the people received. There were mostly separated into combat classes and production classes, then further into more specialized categories like support classes. This wasn't the end though. Those Assassin stones could be bought and used repeatably, each time you would be taken to that strange place. Though apparently after the first freebie you would need to go through a trial. Depending on your stats and skills you could unlock other classes. The requirements for unlocking Tier 2 classes varied. The minimum requirement was maxing out at least one Tier 1 class. The Mage class relied on intelligence and willpower to cast spells. Int for better attack and more mana, while willpower apparently allowed for better concentration during spellcasting and increased mana regeneration. The basic books he was learning from didn't go into too much detail, and his family wouldn't be spending more cash on him until after his ascension ritual. Still, I'm going to be a damn mage, why should the next mage king do this kind shit? Roland grumbled while doing push-ups. An angry-looking man was looking at him. This was a soldier that was working for the Baron and his personal trainer. The Baron, whose name was Wentworth Arden, was a muscle head through and through. What kind of name is Wentworth? His father was a military man as well, so he wanted all of his children to have basic training. This mostly consisted of endurance and muscle-building training along with basic swordsmanship. His life consisted of waking up, eating, training in the morning, then reading books, and training his mana. This was one of these days. He was doing some basic strength training like push-ups, squats, and then pull-ups. His regiment consisted of bodyweight exercises as he was still only a 5-year-old. His older brother that was 8 was running some laps and smirking in his direction. "What you looking at, you brat? When I get that mage class I'll stick a lightning bolt up your ass." Roland panted while face-planting into the dusty ground. His physical stats were abysmal. This was probably why his magic-related stats were so good. His male siblings for some reason loved seeing him get mistreated. He didn't know why, but he attributed it to them being spoiled noble brats. They probably saw him as someone beneath them. After he gained some clout with the Baron, they resented him even more. "Okay, the moment I get the chance I'm running away from this devil hole," he groaned while the man that was training him gave him a nudge with his foot. "That wasn't even 10, get up. This is a disgrace to the Arden name." He was constantly reminded that he was part of the noble caste now. He was supposed to be part of the fabled 1% now. It sure didn't feel like that though. His living conditions improved slightly, but if he had to compare it to how people lived back on Earth, it was worse here. Still, he was gaining new skills. After some running, he got the running skill. If he did some sprints he received the sprint skill. After doing some basic hand-to-hand combat drills he received basic punching skills. This made the whole progression more bearable as you had something to look forward to. He was a gamer back in his older life, so this gave his dopamine receptors a nudge. Which in turn made him want to increase those basic physical skills. What more, the higher the skills the better he became. The moment he received one he instantly felt the change. He could run faster, jump higher, and punch harder. He would even receive bonuses to his endurance and strength stats if he leveled up these skills high enough. "This is slightly addicting," he said while looking up in the air. He was sitting on his bed and looking at the glowing fog around him. His mana sense skill was already at level 3 at this point. This skill didn't do much besides letting him see the mana around him. It looked like a faint blue fog, but he couldn't really do anything with it. Leveling this skill only widened the range of his mana sense and made the fog slightly more distinct. Well, from the books I read, I should get this to level 10 before the Ascension ceremony, and I'm almost guaranteed a mage class. I will gain some skills directly from the mage class at L1, ones that will help me shape mana and expel mana, or ones that will let me absorb more and raise my mana regeneration. He balanced a pen between his nose and upper lip and looked outside. There were 2 moons shining brightly, one was red and the other was blue. This was a reminder that he was really in another world. His family was gone, all of his old friends too, everyone here felt like a stranger. Epsilon. He didn't feel like he could bond with them either, his so-called parent was distant. He only gave him attention the moment he found out that he had a rare skill. He knew people like that back from Earth, the ones that only stay with you till you are useful to them. When your usefulness runs out, they will drop you like a sack of potatoes. I really need to get out of here. This mage thing is supposedly very prestigious, so if all goes right I will be able to pave my own path. He wanted nothing more than to leave in peace. He was starting to hate being caught up with others, he just wanted to be left in peace and do things at his own pace. Wonder what a mage actually does for a living. Will I have to participate in monster subjugations? Or wars? He tried thinking back to a couple of RPGs he used to play. In most of those some kind of a chosen one set off on a quest with a party of adventurers. The most basic one was the one where you defeated some powerful monster like a demon king. Me a hero, huh? That probably won't happen. He gave out a sigh and dropped the pen. He was tired and bruised. The idiot of a drill instructor had given him a couple of good whacks with a stick when he was taking his time while running. Will I need to do this for the next 5 years? He grumbled while fading away into dreamland, a life of peace and laziness on his mind. A dark-haired boy with green eyes was standing by a big tree. He was wearing casual clothes and his face was dirty. The youth took a large breath in and then tossed himself onto the broad tree trunk. His hands and feet started shuffling back and forth as he headed upwards as he climbed the tree. In a matter of seconds, he managed to get up to one of the larger branches. He wasn't done apparently as he quickly slid down and repeated this procedure about 10 times before he heard a familiar voice. Basic climbing level 3 reached. This was a slightly older Roland, half a year had passed since he got here. He had been testing this skill and level-based system for some time now and came to some conclusions. From what he knew, a person couldn't get many skills before going through the Ascension ritual. A vast majority of them were the basic type. 50 times, huh? I guess it's not a 10-time multiplier. Roland rubbed his chin. He had trained his climbing tree on this exact same tree from level 1. After getting up the first time, he had earned basic climbing at L1, after the next 10 tries he was at L2, then after 50 times he got it up to level 3 now. Not everything can become a skill though. He had tried various approaches. He had a small ball and he tried tossing it up against the wall multiple times to see if he would gain some kind of throwing skill, but it didn't work. Then he gave it another try with a rock and a training dummy and was able to attain a basic rock throwing skill. Might have something to do with the way I was throwing it, or with the item being a toy and a rock might be considered a projectile or a weapon. He came to the conclusion that most of the skills you could gain were used for combat in some way. He needed to throw a spear to get a basic spear throwing skill, but for some reason couldn't achieve the same by throwing a stick that wasn't accepted by the system as a weapon. It's a little bit vague. Also think there is a clear achievement-based system working in the back that levels the skills up when you pass the threshold. He had tested the climbing skill just for that reason. The level up points was at 1, 10, and then 50. The further you went, the harder it was to level up a skill. Wonder if I climb a taller tree if the time required to level up the skill will change. Martha was standing to the side while holding her cheek. She had been watching her young master climbing up various trees and scribbling something down into a notebook. At some point he would stop and look at the things he wrote down, his eyes would narrow or bulge out in an odd way. Young master has become quite active lately, I should add more meat to his diet. The woman went away to do some chores while Roland continued testing the skills. He had become quite infamous among the servants. People started finding him hiding in the closets or sneaking into the basement. When they asked him about an explanation, he always replied that he was testing new skills. His older brothers started ignoring him after they saw him try to scale the mansion walls while muttering something about a strange monster called a truck. More time passed and Roland had learned most of the basic skills that he considered useful and easy to pick up. There was one thing that was bothering him, and that were the skills that he was sent to this world with. Even after testing, he couldn't figure out what his circuitry or debugging skills could be useful for. The third one, that was tinkering, proved useful when he tried rearranging a clock. He never worked with clocks, but he somehow knew where the parts should fit in. He didn't believe this was the work of the circuitry skill, as circuits and cogs in a clock weren't even close. The application of mana sense was also something he couldn't figure out. There was also that thing where the original host of the body died due to trying to absorb the mana fog in the surrounding. After further research, he concluded that before reaching a mage or acolyte class this was impossible and would result in mana poisoning. No one explained it to the original kid. I guess I'll have to wait with any magic-related testing after I'm older. Roland wanted to start playing with mana, who wouldn't? This path was blocked, for now, so he focused on other things. His identify skill went up the more he read or identified things. The sleep resistance was also self-explanatory. After the youth had gained a plethora of basic skills like sprinting, climbing, throwing, he looked into other things. One of these things was class-related skills concerning crafting. He had the tinkering skill, so maybe he could learn to smith or work the forge. Why, young master, if the Baron finds out? You can't learn class skills like this, the Baron will be mad. Roland was now standing with a mallet in his hand, hitting it against some heated-up iron. He had gone over to the blacksmith that was working and used his name of one of the Baron's sons to force the blacksmith to teach him something about crafting. This didn't go the way he had planned though, as he wasn't getting any skills from hitting the heated-up horseshoes. Maybe I'm missing a step. Hey, what's the most basic blacksmith skill? He was sure he would gain some basic skills if he worked with the smelter, or if he hammered away at heated metal. For some reason he wasn't getting anything at all. All the other basic skills were a lot easier to unlock at L1. Master Roland, if you don't unlock the blacksmith class you can't learn any smithing skills. Apparently, the only skills he could gain, just like before, were ones related to combat. The only hammer-related skills he could get were ones related to fighting proficiencies. This doesn't make much sense. Maybe the people or gods that developed this didn't want to have child labor or something? In the end, the Baron found out that Roland was spending his time working at the forge. He was forced to abandon his smithing testing after they proved ineffective. He was also forbidden from doing tasks like this as they were unfitting of a noble's son. Time moved on. Roland kept training his basic skills to their maximum while trying not to die from boredom. Doing repeatable tasks like this just to hear the system ding wasn't as rewarding as one might think. Then his 9th birthday came. He didn't receive any presents though, he got something else entirely. Roland looked at the sharp object in his hand. It was a short sword fashioned out of steel. He was about 140 cms now, quite tall for a 9-year-old child. He glanced at the weapon he was holding, his identifying skill even giving him some basics. Short sword, common, attack, defense. A common sword made from steel. Yeah. That helps a lot. Why was he holding a weapon for killing people, you might ask? Also, why was he in a dim-lit room with a green-looking creature looking at him with those beady eyes? The Baron liked to keep his boys on a tight leash. He was just 1 year short of receiving his ascension. The House of Arden had a tradition, a very bloody one. Children that reached the age of 9 were to take a certain test of bravery. He was taken to the mansion's dungeon. In there he was presented his opponent. This was something commonly seen in these kinds of fantasy worlds, but for Roland, this was a first. The people around here were all humans. If he didn't see this creature today, he might have believed that they were the only race around. Goblin L1 HP 117/117. There it was, green and ugly, and even shorter than him at about 120 centimeters of height. It looked angry and was holding a short blade similar to his, just a lot rustier. In comparison, after 4 years of grueling training, his stats went up by a bit. Name, Roland Arden. HP 159/159. MP 494/494. SP 205/205. Strength 12. Agility 13. Dexterity 20. Vitality 12. Endurance 13. Intelligence 41. Willpower 21. Charisma 9. Luck 6. He only had his HP to compare. His was higher, so he had to have higher vitality and endurance than this creature. Vitality gave most health points, while endurance was mostly for stamina but also rewarded some points to it. Roland, what are you looking at? Focus on your enemy. The voice came from the side. It was the same man that was responsible for his training. He was large and bald, scars all over his body. The Baron was busy this day but decided that it shouldn't be postponed, so he was here without his parent. In his mind, this was a trivial matter, and just like the other sons, he should be able to push through this little test. Wish that ridiculous int stat that I have could be used for something. He had 3 stats over 20, dexterity was the only one that was helpful for this occasion, but it was mostly archery focused or for light blades like a rapier. The creature in front of him gave out a high-pitched screech and charged at him without waiting for him to get comfortable. It knew that this was a life-or-death encounter and it would show no mercy to its opponent. Roland was startled by the shout, but luckily his high willpower let him keep a mostly clear head in this bout. Get a grip. You trained for this. The man inhabiting the youth's body would be a bit over 30 years of age at this point. Still, he was never in a death battle before, so he was quite nervous. There was no strategy to the way this monster acted, it just charged at him with its weapon in hand. It delivered an overhead chop that could be easily read, prompting Roland to dodge to the side. This was a good chance to retaliate. He swung his short sword at the creature but faltered at the last second. He didn't put all of his weight into it. This resulted in a shallow cut to the goblin's arm. The monster swung back randomly, managing to deliver a cut to the boy's side. You have taken 10 damage. What are you doing? Go for the throat. Roland backed away, sweat running down his forehead. Luckily he was wearing some leather armor that managed to protect him from the brunt of the attack. The bladed weapon of the green monster was of lower quality, so thanks to this he was spared from bleeding. Still, it hurt and would probably leave behind a nasty bruise. His own attack was quite shallow as well, resulting in a similar 10 horsepower decrease to the goblin's health pool. The wound wasn't deep enough to cause a bleeding effect to go through, and the goblin screamed out again while charging. The creature seemed to go into some kind of berserk state, its eyes went red and it started swinging its blade around like a maniac. In the face of danger, Roland's mind went blank momentarily and he started backing away. What are you doing? It's only a small goblin. The man kept insulting him. He wanted to go over there and give him a slap. He might have been an adult on the inside, but this man thought he was a 9-year-old child. He was still shouting and edging him to face the monster head-on. Should have given me a shield, you prick. The egging worked. Roland gritted his teeth and dived forward. His opponent was weaker, had no training, and was slower. Between the random slashes, Roland saw his chance and jabbed his short sword into the creature's shoulder, jumping back the moment it tried to hit back. This was a massive hit as the goblin's HP dropped by 50 points and it only had half of its health left. The monster screamed out, but this time around Roland was unaffected. The monster didn't relent and continued charging like an idiot. He took his time and just kept countering, finally ending it with a killing blow to the monster's neck. It dropped almost instantly, black blood gushed out of its body. You have gained 10 experience points. You have gained the first kill achievement. You receive a bonus of 50 experience points. He felt a strange tingling feeling like something wanted to enter his body. The strange phenomenon stopped almost instantly as if being blocked by something. This feeling was the act of gaining experience which was blocked due to this world's restrictions. This experience couldn't actually be used for now, as he needed an actual class. Any experience gained before the Ascension ritual would be added later on but with a penalty. From the books, people speculated that this was put in place to prevent people from having kids kill monsters before the Ascension. Roland looked down. The stench this monster was giving off was making him nauseous. He managed to power through it and not vomit. His only reward for killing this monster was smack to the back of his head. His so-called teacher berated him for doing badly and not being able to just overpower a weak level 1 goblin that had no skill at fighting. Roland was far too tired to respond to this and just nodded. His 9th birthday ended with a blast, with him killing a humanoid creature followed by some nightmares. More time passed and finally, the day was close, the day of becoming a mighty mage. Chapter 5, Ascension Ritual. The Runesmith. Roland was sitting in his room. Tomorrow the Ascension ritual was supposed to take place. It might be called that, but it wasn't anything that grand. He would be given an orb and it would supposedly somehow bring him to another place. In this place, he was going to receive his new class. Everyone said that the Ascension space differs for each individual. Roland had gone through books and procured as much information as he could. Supposedly the first time you used this class-changing crystal or orb, you got awarded a class. It was more or less a freebie. The fun part began afterward. The next time you used it, you had to go through some kind of trial. These trials ranged from your normal battle scenarios all the way to crafting items and solving puzzles. Some people said that they find themselves in a cave with many doors. The classes that they can use are behind those doors. Roland was holding onto a book that was related to classes and how you unlocked higher tiers. His Tier 1 class of choice was the Mage. If what the book said was true, then he was certain to get this one. My mana sense is maxed out and I have truckloads of intelligence and willpower, so there isn't really any other class that fits me. I am not religious enough for the Acolyte class either. The other caster class that he had the stats for was the Acolyte. From this one you could advance into a Tier 2 priest. This was your general healing class, but unless you were some kind of believer you wouldn't get a chance at it. It says that you can sign up to the church and after you go through their baptism you can also attain this class. The boy that was close to 10 rubbed his chin. Through the 5 years he had been here he had grown a habit of talking to himself. Besides his maid Martha and a cheeky brat, no one really talked to him. Even when they did it was more yes or no type of answers or questions. Soon I will be able to leave this place. He was a noble and even though his family was like this they still had to take care of him. Nobles after going through their ascension would start attending school. There were separate schools for young mages and knights, so he would be free of his family. He even read that mages get special privileges. If he did well he could earn himself his own plot of land free of charge. Free real estate. Though I still have to pay taxes. The closer the day of freedom was, the more he read about the classes. Elemental mages, gravity mages, ones that could turn into massive demons or beasts. There were various kinds and you could pick and choose out of the pile if you earned the required skills. The most basic Tier 2 classes were the 4 basic elemental mages. Fire, wind, earth, and water. There were some hidden ones or harder to reach, but these 4 were considered the basic 4. If you mastered all 4 of them you could even earn a prestigious Tier 3 Elementalist class, which was one of the better ones. There are so many possibilities. His eyes gleamed, he could wait to embark on his journey. There was no limit to how many classes you could have. The only thing that limited you was that you couldn't reclass before reaching at least 25 levels of the class you were in. Tier 1 classes had to be done till the end as they had a level limit of 25. An Elementalis sounds nice. But the other height elemental mage classes aren't bad either. A Firefrost mage is a strange one as it combines 2 opposite effects. He glanced at the other classes as well, you could even combine them together. Things like Magic Swordsman or Elemental Knight were also possible but were quite hard to achieve. People that wanted these classes had to be both good in physical attributes as well as the magical ones. Being a mage opens up so many possibilities. You can mix magic with a lot of classes, you can even be an enchanter or a magic smith. Though there aren't that many of those, most mages wouldn't want to work as a blacksmith. Well, not like I have to worry about that too much, making magical horseshoes isn't the way for me. While he was going through the class book once more he heard a knock on the door. "Young master, it's getting late, you should go to sleep before the big day tomorrow." It was Martha, coming over to remind Roland of tomorrow's ascension ritual. "Ah sure, good night Martha." The next day it was raining and the clouds were blocking out the sun. This didn't bother Roland though, he was pumped up, he would be getting a game-like class and nothing could break his spirit. The fact that Adam the butler was the one bringing over the ascension ritual crystal didn't shake him in any way. "Young master, your father is out and your brothers are busy at the Night Academy, please take this." He handed him the crystal. It looked like a slightly blue quartz crystal and was quite symmetrical. "Ah sure, busy as always, what else is new?" The Baron was a busy man, he rarely spent time in his mansion. He was a high-ranking official in the army and had to train the army soldiers. He had earned his rank thanks to his battle achievements, his whole family before him were honorable knights but he was the first one to hit it big. "Yes, let us begin, please sit down and concentrate on the crystal, you don't need to do anything else Master Roland." No special place was required, even though the crystal would take him somewhere his real body would remain in place. If what the book said was true, then even if he stayed in the trial space for months only seconds would go by in the material world. People speculated that some kind of powerful magic pulled the crystal user's soul somewhere where time and space worked differently. Roland nodded and sat down while holding the crystal with both his hands. Some other servants along with Martha were in the room with him. They were mostly here to examine if he actually received the mage class and pass it on to the family head. He read it in the book and it said that there was nothing special to activating this crystal. He focused on it and soon enough he felt a strange reaction. The crystal started glowing brighter and brighter and he felt as if he was getting drawn to it. In a matter of moments, everything went dark. He felt like someone had ripped him out of the spot he was sitting on and tossed him down a bottomless pit in which he was now falling down. What? The momentary darkness subsided and he found himself in some kind of building. There were stairs leading upwards and there were glass doors behind him. He glanced around, his eyes bulged out wide as he recognized this place. "Huh? I'm back? Was that all a dream or something? No. I'm still a 10-year-old. This was the cheap apartment building that he used to live in before he got flattened by that truck. It looked dirty and unkempt as always. He turned around but saw that something was off. Behind the glass doors that normally lead outside there was nothing. Why is it so dark outside? Can't see anything. It was pitch dark as if there was nothing there. He reached for the door handle and tried pushing it down. It didn't budge an inch. He pushed and pulled but nothing happened. He even started kicking the glass hoping to get some kind of reaction but it was as if he was hitting hard steel. He finally turned around, his face filled with confusion and sweat. He went for the first apartment, knocking and trying to frantically open it. Hey, is there someone inside? Hello? The door was strange, it was as if it was made from a different material and was photocopied from his memories and just plastered here. The same thing happened when he run up, each door was unmoving, he couldn't even get the handles to budge in any way. That book said that this ascension space could be strange. I guess this isn't my old apartment building. He climbed up, finally realizing where he was. His old apartment was on the top floor. He remembered always getting winded while going up. This time around with the increased stats and stamina he felt normal, stood in front of his apartment now, the number 19 written on it. Well, here goes nothing. He grabbed the door handle and flicked his wrist, the familiar clicking sound of a lock opening was heard. He pushed the door open and just looked inside. It's really my room. He slowly entered his old home. It wasn't big or anything. There was a living room and a small toilet, the kitchen was combined with the living area and he only had enough space for a bed on the side along with a desk for his PC. This good old shitty apartment. The items in this place were all real and fully recreated, the mattress that he used to use even had a hole in exactly the same spot that he remembered. He sat down on his old bed, and even this old thing was better than the bed he was using back at the Arden estate. When he asked about a change, they just said something that it built character if he used a hard bed and that he shouldn't complain. So what is this place supposed to be anyway? The windows couldn't be opened and the water in the faucets wasn't running either. There was sufficient light inside this room but the scenery outside was pitch black. This made him feel like he was in some kind of Twilight Zone episode. The only thing that was showing some life was his old gaming PC, as he noticed that the power button was glowing. He sat down in his old gaming chair, it was still comfy as ever. He pressed the button with a shaky finger and heard the familiar booting sound. The computer booted up into Windows 10 and even his old password worked. The only thing out of place was the blank desktop with only one icon right in the middle. I guess I'm supposed to click this. The icon was a drawing of a large shield in the back and a sword and magic staff in the front. He slowly delivered the double click and waited for this program to load up. He was greeted with a sprite of himself, or at least it looked kind of like him as the resolution was quite low. Is this pixel art of me or something? There was an arrow moving away from his sprite that was looping a 3-frame walking animation to the side. There was another grayed out sprite that the arrow was pointing at. It looked like a pixel version of him in a robe. Could this be my Tier 1 class? Looks like a magician. He was kind of baffled about the way this ascension trial worked. Before clicking the mage sprite he looked back and glanced at his old apartment room. He lived here for only a year but he was closer to this place than to that noble mansion he was at now. He wanted to just turn around and flop on his bed, maybe if he woke up he would be back on Earth and could go back to his boring job. I probably should get on with this ascension. He grimaced and placed his hand on the mouse, the cursor went over to the tiny sprite and he clicked it. The moment he did that he received a prompt. Do you wish to change classes to the Tier 1 Mage class? Yes/no? He hesitated for a while but finally clicked yes. The computer screen flashed for a moment and a little animation of the arrow filling up as an upload screen appeared. The tutorial will be initiated, please put on the VR headset. He received another prompt followed by a strange sound coming from above. Then a VR headset appeared out of nowhere and fell right into his lap. Huh. I never owned a VR headset. He looked at it and it was a model he was familiar with. He wanted to buy one of these in the past but didn't have the cash to spare. He decided to follow the instructions and put it on. The moment the VR headset was strapped in, something happened. He expected to actually see some instructions while getting a regular VR experience but instead he found himself in a strange white room. There is nothing here. He couldn't feel that he was wearing a VR headset anymore and couldn't take it off, it was as if he dived into the Matrix. He looked around while wondering what he was supposed to do. After some seconds the whole place flickered and the scenery changed. Wait. Is that me? The white room switched to a grassy plain. There was a wooden training dummy standing in one spot and opposite it was a person. This person looked like Roland. He was wearing a mage robe and his facial expression was non-existent. His copy raised his hand upwards and held his palm towards the training dummy. Roland had his mana sense skill maxed out, so he noticed the change in mana around that person. The Roland clone opened up his mouth, some words escaped its mouth. He stared at the talking person and he noticed the shift of mana around the clone. The mana moved through its body and towards its palm and something started forming. A small ball of energy was created. This ball gradually increased in size before it was shot forward. The wooden dummy received the hit, the wood splintering to the sides as if it was hit by a small cannonball. Whoa! Was that magic? His copy didn't say anything but dropped its hand down and then turned to face him. The Roland copy had a blank expression and then started slowly walking towards him. This put the original Roland at attention. What was this clone of him trying to do? Wait. He tried backing off but his back hit some kind of invisible wall. Out of surprise he turned around and tried hitting it with his fist. His sudden opponent didn't stop though and continued walking. Hey, you think I'm afraid of you? Roland took a fighting stance. He went through 5 years of training and knew basic hand-to-hand combat as well. He decided to take the offensive thinking that his opponent wouldn't have enough time to react. But his punch didn't hit anything but air, it literally went through his copy's head. What is this? The clone was apparently immaterial or a hologram. The moment it touched Roland's body it faded away. This wasn't the end as Roland felt a sharp pain, his head felt like it was getting a needle stuck into it. You have attained the Tier 1 Mage class, Basic Mana Shaping skill unlocked, Basic Mana Regulation skill unlocked, Mana Bolt spell L1 unlocked. Basic Incantation L1 unlocked. He heard the familiar voice announce that he had changed classes while the pain was subsiding. He shook his head and could feel that he had learned an actual spell and had his stats slightly raised. The skills he gained helped him in shaping spells and regulating the mana inside of his body. He wanted to test his newfound skills out, but before he could do that the space he was in started flickering. He wasn't sure if it was due to a time limit or if after a class up you got kicked out. Everything went dark once more and he found himself falling into the darkness again. He gasped out as he found himself back in the Arden estate, the servants looking at him from the sides. Were you successful, Master Roland? Did you receive the mage class? He grasped his head for a moment. The crystal that he was holding previously had turned into dust. He nodded while rubbing his head and slowly moved off the ground. Yes, I even learned the Mana Bolt spell. He smirked as he had achieved what he had set out to. No one in this family could deny him anymore. He could go to a prestigious academy and learn magic now. His life looked bright and if he studied hard he could go far. Congratulations, Master, but let us test your elemental affinities before we inform the Lord. Roland snapped out of his daydream and looked at Adam the butler. Ah yes, the elemental affinities, I forgot to check them. The servant moved over with a large glass orb. Roland placed his hand on the measuring device, not thinking anything of it. His affinities would decide what elements he was best at. This was nothing more than a formality but would show him which element he should focus on. He didn't need much, any kind of number would let him advance further, so he wasn't worried. The orb glowed slightly but nothing out of the ordinary happened. The butler looked at the measuring device for a moment with a strange expression on his face. Could it be broken? Young master, could you look at your elemental affinities and see the values? The elemental affinities were a hidden stat that was only unlocked after the first class. Roland shrugged and brought up his status screen. While thinking about his affinity, a window popped up. At Tier 1 only the basic 4 elements could be unlocked. there were more elements like lightning and gravity at higher tiers. Name, Roland Arden. Fire 0%. Wind 0%. Earth 0%. Water 0%. What? All at 0%? He spoke out clearly and everyone heard it. Adam looked at the orb and then to Roland, his brows furrowing. 0%. This is unprecedented. I must report this to the Lord. The other servant started whispering from the sides. He wasn't sure what was wrong. The books didn't say anything about people having zero elemental affinity. He looked at his maid Martha. The woman had tears in her eyes for some reason. He has no magic affinity. Doesn't that mean that he won't be able to get any of the tier 2 mage classes? One of the servants said while another one tried to shut him up. What? I have no magic talent. How could this be?